This is Greg Collins. It is episode 264 of Substitute Teachers Lounge, July 30th, 2024. I think it's going to be a fun one today because I'm going to change my mind on some things that I have previously reported, in some cases years ago on this podcast, and it's going to be kind of interesting. We're going to talk mainly about situations where you're trying to decide if you want to substitute teach short-term or long-term, when you're trying to decide what grades you want to substitute teach, and if you're considering your options at schools where you thought you'd never go back to. I'm going to tell you the decisions I have come up with and why for all of those. Interestingly enough, when you hear my decisions, it may make you think you want to do just the opposite.
Substitute Teachers Lounge.
Man, it is so crazy. Is my calendar really telling me that July is basically over and we're moving into August? School month, back to school. I haven't talked to a whole lot of students who want to go back to school. I tell them that I'm ready to go back to school because I'm bored and I want to see them a lot more. I know I've talked to my granddaughter who will be in the 5th grade, and she says she's ready to go back to school. So we'll see how that works. I was excited this past weekend. The Bluegrass State Games were going on in Kentucky, and it was high school volleyball weekend. And I went by to see matches for both of the high schools that I substitute teach at. It was so much fun to see those students again because I hadn't really seen them since the middle of May, and it was exciting to see them once again. I wish them the best of luck on their seasons, and I miss all my students that way. I got to thinking, though, every now and then I'll take the time to glance back through the titles of, like I said, this is episode 264, so I can't believe I've recorded that many of these. I glanced through the titles. If I were being honest with myself, some of the titles I look at and think, what did I say during that episode? Because, maybe I don't give some of my titles the most specific title. It's too generic. I'm kind of thankful for Buzzsprout's artificial intelligence now because it's recommending titles to me based on the content. This one has to do with changing my mind on things. I'm going to go back to the furthest one back because I know I didn't look up the episode number. And to be honest, I don't want you to listen to it. Go back and listen to it if you want. But we talked about short-term versus long-term. Now, the differences, for the most part, are obvious. Long-term in my area, especially, now, let me give you my background again because I started substitute teaching. It was actually November, so it was late beginning of this, relatively the beginning of that school year, but the end of the calendar year. And it was before the end of the year that there was one middle school that already told me, Greg, would you consider going long-term right around February and March because we have a lady leaving to have a baby, and we know you like math. She's a math teacher. Would you consider it? And I did, and I loved it. Those kids, and I know some of them are listening because they're going to be seniors this year. It's so crazy to me. I still remember them from the 6th grade. I still have their seating chart pictures from the 6th grade. Every now I won't show it to other students, but I'll show it to them every now and then. We'll get kind of a chuckle of how much they've changed over the years. But in my area now, which is different than what it was back in 2019, we get basically my wife gets a little bit more because she's actually a credentialed retired teacher. I'm a retired accountant or retired anything else. So in the retired anything else category, we get $125 a day to substitute teach, no matter what level we're substitute teaching. But if we sign on long term for 15 days or more, this one I was just telling you about was 7 weeks, 15 days or more, we get kicked all the way up to 185. And it's pretty crazy that it goes that high. And how can you turn down a long-term job, right? Because you know where you're going every day. You can plan your schedules better. You know, you don't have to play that substitute teacher roulette anymore where you don't know what you're doing each and every day. You got someplace to go. You're getting money. You get closer to the students, which I think is important, especially from the educational standpoint, because once they get used to you more and more, now some people would say they misbehave the more they get to know you. That's an argument on the other side of the coin. But most of the time, once they get comfortable with how you teach, it's easier to teach them. I'll venture to say they even learn more if you're with them more. And that's what I said back in that episode. And I told you then that that's why I would always go with a long-term job over a short-term job. Well, I've changed my mind. I'm going to tell you why. And I'm probably in the category that less than 5% of you are, in that I'm retired and I wasn't a teacher before. So I have to do the education to get what they call in my area an emergency certification each and every year that I want to substitute teach. You know, I notice, I'm going to, a little aside here. When I start talking with my hands, I catch myself banging my desktop here, and sometimes I can hear that on the show. So if you hear that, I apologize, and I just did that. So, but long term is great. Now, one small part that I've changed my mind on about short term is one thing that short term has got going for it for me is I get to see different students every day. I have met thousands and thousands of students. You'll meet more students in a given year. If you substitute all the time, you'll meet more students in a given year than the teachers, the regular teachers, because they're teaching the same kids over and over again. You're teaching, when you're short term, different kids every day. You'll see some of them on a repeat basis, and thank goodness, because they let you know that they like having you there, and that's the short-term part. Let me tell you why I've changed my mind. And again, this isn't going to be you, but this is what, and people are going to hear this. They're going to agree with me, and I hate it that it's true. But there have been 2 long-term teaching commitments that I backed out of. And if I was being honest with myself, I backed out of selfishly. Now, there was a part of it that I just got fed up with some of the students in one of the classes. And when I got thinking I got to do this for 5 more weeks, I don't want to do it. That was part of it. But sometimes it was just, one of the times family got in the way. And even though I couldn't help it, I realized I was going to have to take off more days to help with the grandkids and other situations like that was going on. And what should have happened in that case is I should have not accepted the long-term job in the first place. But I did. Then I had to tell them I can't do it anymore. And that's that one. One of the other times was selfish. I'm retired. I wanted to do some things. I decided I can't do this long term anymore based on things I want to do in my life as a retired person. And yes, most of it had to do with vacation, pleasure trips, all that kind of thing. So that's the reason now, for the most part. Now, if there's an administrator out there listening, please don't say, well, Collins will never do long-term again. I'll go to somebody else. I kind of want to be asked, and I guarantee you I won't immediately turn you down. I'll consider it given the situation, the age groups, and all that kind of thing. But for the most part, I like doing short term, day by day now because I get to meet so many students and I don't have to tie myself down. Secondly, age groups. Oh man, this is such a big one for me. You've heard me talk about in recent podcasts how I think the pandemic has hurt the maturity level of some of these middle schoolers that I'm got coming in. It makes me, middle school used to be my favorite. I really can't say that anymore. Especially, I did basically, at least 85% high school last week because I was working with one volleyball program in the first half of the year and another volleyball program the second half of the year, and it just made sense to teach more in those high schools. So I did. Once that was over, I did some middle school. And now I'm thinking, all right, if I really think that the pandemic caused some of this, how am I going to test that? Well, here's how I'm going to test it. Guys, I've got my list on a lot of elementary schools now. They are on my list. I've got 4 of them in my area that I've clicked the check mark. I assume my area is about like yours where you click a check mark of the schools you want to be considered for to substitute teach, and those are the only schools that it lists for you. There's some I don't go to. Nothing against those schools. It's just different things, distance, that kind of thing. There's one elementary school that 2 of my grandkids are going to be at next year, and it's on a bad day, I could walk to it if I had to. It's just basically, I guess it's about 1.5 miles down the road. And I'm going to get into elementary school more. In fact, the way I'm leaning right now, I may want to start with the majority being elementary school. And I'm thinking this maturity level that I kept complaining about, because of the pandemic, if I go all the way down to elementary school and now the kids I'm subbing in 4th grade were only, what would that be? It's 5 years ago now, right? So they would have barely been in kindergarten or somewhere in that area, if then, and maybe they missed, even though they were cooped up in the house too, that was so young that maybe it hasn't hurt their development as much, and I want to put that to practice. So I'm thinking it's less than a month away. This upcoming year, I may actually lean more towards elementary school. And to be honest, part of it also has to do with I helped the area high school volleyball coach with her summer program again this summer, and I enjoyed that so much. We did well. We were 5-1, I think, by the end of the season, and I enjoyed it so much, not because we were 5-1, but because I really enjoyed working with that age group. If I enjoy it that much, I've got to test it out in the classroom, right? So I've got some. I told you that even though I said I might try it someday, that I don't think I could ever teach elementary school. I am challenging myself. You don't have to. But I am challenging myself to do elementary school. In fact, if I was guessing, if I was a betting man, and I do sometimes, but I don't think I can bet on this, I would bet that the majority of you listening are elementary school favorites. That's where you like to go most. And I don't know if that's true, but we'll see. So this might be one of those that I tell you why I'm going to go to elementary school. I'm going to branch out. Those of you that have been doing elementary school, I might not have motivated you to try middle school or high school, but either way, that is another reason I am changing my philosophy about substitute teaching this year. And then the last one I'll talk about, this came up as well during this summer volleyball program because I was working with the younger kids, so the oldest one in my group was actually going into 6th grade next year, and the youngest, we actually had some that are going into 3rd grade that did really well. They did shockingly well, to be perfectly honest. I enjoyed that age group. Again, that's what's driving me towards elementary school. The other side of the curtain in that gymnasium were some of the kids that I had taught all the time. And every time I see them, Mr. Collins, when are you coming back? They know some of the reasons that I didn't come back to their school for a while in the first place. Some of the students just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I knew I had other options, so I decided not to go back. And, they asked me to come back, and even to the point of saying, don't let those other students, don't hold it against us because of those other students. And that kind of, I'm an old man. My heart gets broken easily these days with kids of that age, and I'll probably go back. So I said I might not go back to that school until some of these students had grown up. That's not the case. I'm going to go back to that school. I'm going to give it another try. To be honest, I might even seek out classes that I know these students are going to be in and see if they have an extra level of maturity that's helped them, and if maybe I have another year of experience that has helped me and made me realize, hey, this isn't such a bad gig after all. One thing that I've done is I've thought a lot about things that have did happen when I was like in junior high and high school back in my day. And it wasn't that indifferent then. And even I was a pretty good kid. But I gave substitute teachers a hard time sometimes. And I think back to that and think, what was I thinking? Why did I act that way? Of course, I'm 66 now. I mean, a lot of that comes from just maturing. But that's the three things that I'm going to challenge myself. Challenge yourself with other things. You heard the reasons why I'm changing, why I'm going to concentrate on short-term substitute teaching for the most part, elementary school teaching, hopefully for the most part, and going back to some of the middle school classes that I said I probably wouldn't go back to for a while because I need to challenge myself. Challenge yourself. I mean, I remember I had a boss back when I was 30. I was an accountant. He was the controller. I worked for him in an assembly plant. And he would occasionally make comments about how somebody was down on the assembly line and was asked to move into a management position, and he didn't want to. And my boss was giving him a really hard time. I mean, how can you not move forward to higher paying jobs that challenge yourself more? Well, people are all just different. He was happy where he was. You get more headaches in a management position. Same way here. Challenge yourself. If you've got it easy right now, try something more difficult. See how it works out. And I hope as we get back in, man, what do we got here? It is July 30th. What is it? Are we 3 weeks away? Some of you maybe even sooner than that. Some of you may not start till September. But either way, we got to be thinking about our strategies as we enter this new substitute teacher year. As we close, always remember that you can email your questions to gregcollinssubstitute@gmail.com. Please join our Facebook group, Substitute Teachers Lounge, where we'll share ideas and thoughts about each week's show. See you next week. Music provided by Ben Sound.